Hey, Kelvin, can you hear me? Kelvin, can you hear me? Hey, Kelvin.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Hey, I just want to say, if the planning commission passes this resolution tonight, I would like to get you a fresh copy to sign before you leave. It'd be easier than trying to track you down.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks.
Oh, over here, yes. Trying to find the right camera.
Do we need another?
But I will tell you that hearing from a volunteer that's putting their own time and energy is, and it gives us as organizers, like as you heard, we've been adapting our script every month.
How are we doing? Are we waiting for one more?
And then we
Hearing something else through your
so they can be smarter.
computer.
And when we're out,
Oh, really?
yeah, how we're talking to people based on these phone calls.
Forgive me, I was multitasking.
Sometimes what happens when you're in
I had another Zoom going on. I'll get off. I'll quit.
Let me know when you're ready. I can start the recording.
It's hard to be everywhere at once, right?
Now I think we have four.
1, 2, 3, 4. Stephen Jackson's supposed to be on.
Yeah, come on.
Yeah, so we only have 4 so far, right?
Yes. We're waiting on 2 more that emailed saying they are joining.
Should we do a phone tree to get them to show up, or Steven Jackson?
I would leave that up for Steve's discretion.
Well, we're 6:31, so we'll hang on.
Hey, Atul, what's that little face behind your shoulder? Hanging on your wall. What is that?
Oh, Cliff loves.
Do you know who Mark Washke is?
No?
He carved that.
Oh, hold your camera up to it. I want to see it more.
Oh, all right, okay, hang on.
Oh, mine.
Hang on.
Have you seen this office?
Oh, yeah, surrounded.
That's cool. It fit right in my tiki room.
Oh, no, you don't. So yeah, Mark Washke carved it, and then he gave it to a Lummi carver who was really liked it, and then the Lummi Nation carver made some more changes and gifted it back to Mark, and then I was supplying Mark eggs for my chickens, and I traded a whole lot of eggs for that carving.
James.
That's the story.
Go out the door. But one person coming on, I can see.
Okay. The other two said that they are.
Oh,
They don't know where they don't know what for.
okay.
Oh, maybe that's why you got.
Oh,
But it's
it's not long.
the door,
Right.
it's a sign on the door. On the door, yeah.
Oh, there you go.
Okay, we are now in court. Okay.
Sorry, I'm late.
Good evening. The August 22nd, 2024 Planning Commission meeting is called to order. We'll call the roll, please. Let me know if you're here. Kelvin Barton, that's me. I'm here. Atul Daswani,
Here.
Anita Heisenberg,
Here.
Jim Hansen. Jim Hansen. Stephen Jackson,
Here.
Julie Jefferson. Julie Jefferson. Frank James. Frank James. Dominic Masseri. Here. Scott Van Dalen. Scott Van Dalen. Okay. Please join me for the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And I'm prioritizing. You can still bring me up. Flag.
Frank James is ready.
Yeah, so. Steve, Assistant Planning Director Steve Robert, would you give us a department update, please?
Yeah, I just want to let you guys know your next topic we have for September 12th, which is our next scheduled meeting. We'll be breaking into 5290, which is the permitting timeline bill. And so we'll be doing an introduction to that in a work session on that then. So that's the next thing we have planned for you on your agenda.
Is that all for us tonight?
That's all I have. Looks like, unless you had something for me there, Tool.
Okay, no, thank you very much. I'm
No,
used to
no.
it being a little bit longer, but.
I think Tool, do you have a question?
Yeah, I just was curious, is there any pre-reading that would be helpful for that?
Yeah, we'll send a packet out and try to cover kind of all the background on that. That comes from it's a mandate from the state that we'll be implementing, but we'll send some stuff out as soon as we have it all prepped.
Thank you. Time now for open session for public comment. Eileen, would you take over, please?
Yes. Welcome to the meeting. This meeting is being broadcast live. The audio is being recorded and will be posted to the county website. As noted on our website, members of the public may watch the meeting or join online or by phone. During the open public comment session, speakers may not speak to items that are scheduled on the agenda for a public hearing tonight. There is no public hearing tonight, so all topics are on the table. If you would like to provide public comment at this time, we will take comments from those in the room first. Please come up to the podium and print your full name on the sign-up sheet. If you are participating remotely and would like to speak, virtually raise your hand. We will get to you shortly. If using the internet, press the hand icon to raise your hand. If calling in by phone, press *9 to raise your hand. You are given 3 minutes to speak. I'm going to pull up the timing. Is there anyone in the room that wishes to speak at this time?
That's first on the list. Well, and while you're walking up there, I just want to say, Commissioner James is arrived here. The meeting. Welcome, Commissioner James.
Thank you.
Okay, please state your name for the rest of you.
Yeah, Tyler Schroeder, Economic Development Director for the Port of Bellingham. Thanks, Planning Commission, for having me tonight. I want to speak to the item that you're having considerations on, which is the heavy impact industrial areas in the city's designated UGA. I thank the commission for your thoughtful discussion and consideration on this item. Over the last month or so, you've had a lot of different input in regards to it. And it's a hard balance between the existing property owners and the rights that they have and some of the discussion in regards to the community concern and balance between residential areas and industrial areas. My role at the Port of Bellingham is Economic Development Director. I work to help support industries, commercial businesses, not only at the Port of Bellingham, but also throughout the community. As we are looking at industrial areas, there is an importance to balance the existing uses and the residential areas. And I would say that in the city's urban growth area of Bellingham, the planning and zoning and codes have done this. In 1984, they really started to establish the urban fringe area more comprehensively in 1999. And the Planning Commission and the council has re-reviewed that in 2018, which is a pretty recent past as it relates to planning, to look at existing uses, the buffer, the requirements and different development standards that the industrial uses out in that area have to accomplish. And so I recommend not moving forward with a moratorium. Moratoriums add inconsistencies, a recognition that our community is not business friendly and cannot work through the discussion of uses and development standards. And I compliment the council and as well as planning staff who have identified a list of uses that may be added to the prohibition list. I have input on that, and I would be happy to give some input. Those that are not adequate as it relates to today. I think we should look at the battery energy storage and strike that from the list. It's important to strike the bulk commodity facilities from the list and need some clarification in regards to that. I know the Planning Commission is going to consider a moratorium or a recommendation. And if that's what you also choose, so be it. But I do think there could be a compromise in regards to the list of uses that could be prohibited, don't impact the existing landowners, and provide some opportunity to move forward. Thank you, Planning Commission.
Stop for a second. You guys can hear me better? Okay. So my name is Dan. I'm with the Whatcom Working Waterfront Coalition. We represent 150 or so businesses and several thousand folks that work along the waterfront in advocacy for them to have the space along the waterfront they need to practice their trades and also to help balance our economy with those middle wage, middle economy jobs that are not quite high college degree and not quite low wage service positions, but those things in between that allow people career opportunity and retirement potential on a non-college degree track. County Council has directed the Planning Commission to consider a list of excluded and allowed uses in the UGA zone north of town. That list was to be a compromise, bringing together the community that did have concerns and uses for the area and the businesses that need heavy industrial lands to operate, of which we are very short on those lands. The list of exclusions allows the zone to remain designated for heavy industrial. That part is vital as we face a severe shortage of industrial lands in the county. The next available lands are out on the east side of the county, and as I recall, are not connected to services. Correct me if I'm wrong there. To get those lands serviceable and create new land from scratch would be years long project. in which we would not have industrial lands to lease at the same time that we're seeing an energy transformation happen in the sector, not just in maritime, but overall. And we need to have lands available to these new energy companies, new energy industries, so that we can be a part of the energy transition, get off of fossil fuels and help further save our climate. If we don't have the lands for those businesses to operate in the county, they just don't come here, and we miss out on leading that transition when we could. The process would also clarify the existing codes. As Tyler mentioned, there are 3, and I have a handout here that highlights those 3 codes that you guys are welcome to take. I can hand them out, but those codes would be reinforced by that list because community concern is coming from a lack of trust. They don't feel that the codes we have currently for enclosure, appearance, and setback do anything to stop businesses that they see as harmful from coming. This process would be defensible based on those codes, and thereby it wouldn't set a precedent that would worry future businesses investing here, so they could look at this list through the lens of those existing codes and feel confident that the list of exclusions that has been clearly stated for just this one zone was a scenario that simply highlighted existing restrictions based on rational application of that existing code. Essentially, the list would be things that wouldn't pass the codes we already have anyway. So to close, it would help bridge a gap in communications to the community that we have in Whatcom County codes. Also, those codes exist, and there are 3 of them specifically that deal with those setbacks, enclosures, and appearances. So we would love to see this list considered. It's a good compromise. The businesses are going to be behind it. So thank you all for the work you do. And if you want this, I can hand one out to you.
Yes.
Yeah, could I have one of those and then I'd like a copy for Eileen also?
Yeah, I got a whole stack here, and then on the bottom are just questions that I had put to myself, so you can read them, but feel free to ignore them.
Sorry.
I made it in a hurry and I forgot to take my questions off the page.
Okay.
Please state your name for the.
Hello, Coleman Hoyt. I'm with Heidelberg Materials. We operate the cement facility in a higher impact industrial area. I'm the Environment and Sustainability Manager for Heidelberg for Washington. We understand that the council has asked this commission for recommendations to move forward with their initiative to reduce industrial impacts in the urban growth area. Heidelberg is opposed to any action that would limit our ability to do business on our property. That includes zoning, but it also includes permitting moratoriums. We've been in this position before in some of our other facilities in other parts of the state. We've been grandfathered in to rezoned areas. Grandfathering sounds good on paper. We end up with a non-conforming use designation. It allows us to operate, but it comes with significant drawbacks to our operations. Any business needs the ability to adapt, to improve their facilities. When we're unable to permit new activities or new processes, we can't keep up with changing expectations from our neighbors, changing regulatory environments, changing technological advances. It can really hinder us. We consider non-conforming use designation to effectively be deferred eviction. And we don't want to be evicted from this area. We like working here. We have tons of reasons why getting rid of industry in this area would be bad. I know this isn't the time to go about that, but I'd like to ask the commission, if you are going to go forward with moratorium, please consider carefully, if your recommendation is going to have this, please consider the language carefully, because a blanket moratorium that just prohibits all new permits can have significant effects on the existing businesses that are here. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Elliot Smith. I'm the Director of Real Estate at the Port of Bellingham. We purchased the port with the Ports Commissioner's approval. We purchased the former Erschig's facility as a heavy industrial area. At that time, there were 5 or 6 employees working there, 10 or 12 buildings falling into disuse. And we did that so that there would be industrial and light industrial lands available to local businesses that were growing and employing people. We planned for 2 years to fill it. We filled it in 6 months. We filled it in 6 months because there is a great shortage of places where people can work close to their homes. There are now probably in excess of 50 people there on any given day working full-time and growing their businesses. We would not have purchased this had we known that the zoning was potentially going to change or that there would be a moratorium on permits for the area, which we will need as these businesses develop. So having these people be able to work close to home and not be driven to a faraway location out in the county where they can no longer work in Bellingham. We will be essentially driving these young businesses, their jobs, and residents of the same community out of their area. I just want to remind that not all industry is bad, and it's essential to have a mix in our community, or people can't actually stay here and enjoy the quality of life that this area affords. And that's all I wanted to say today. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You've been to Amsterdam, so you know all about that mix.
Is there anyone else in the room that wishes to speak? Is there anyone virtually that wishes to speak at this time? I see Tom Day. Tom Day, would you like to speak at this time?
Yes, I would.
You have 3 minutes.
All right, my name is Tom Day. I'm the owner of Hard Drive Marine. We build aluminum boats. We are currently renters of the Port of Bellingham at 742 Marine Drive. We moved from 2,400 square feet and now occupy 13,000 square feet. A little bit about me. I'm 5th generation Whatcom County resident, born and raised. I was the first employee of Hard Drive, or All American Marine, which is now one of Bellingham's biggest employers. We started in a pole building behind a residence out on the Lemmy Reservation in 1987. And today I believe they employ up to about 130 people. So that was a spawning bed for industry. In 2007, I started Hard Drive Marine. We were in the commercial fishing industry, supplying commercial vessels for Alaska fisheries. And about 10 years ago, we diversified and started doing landing crafts. Currently, we have dealers in Greenland, Venezuela. We have boats in those countries, also in the Caribbean and the South Pacific. So most of the boats that we build today end up in Alaska. And we're recently just opened up the Atlantic coast as well. And so we're starting to move some product to the East Coast of the United States. So not only are we bringing out of state dollars, but we're also bringing foreign dollars back into the community of Whatcom County. We employ 12 staff of good paying manufacturing jobs. And we also have US and foreign patents, which basically secure our market for sales. Right now, we are booked for over 2 years. That's our current waiting list. So I hope that businesses like mine are considered when there's any thought of moratorium in manufacturing and permits in Whatcom County. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. There are no other speakers.
Okay. All right, trying now to move on to commissioner comments. Any commissioner comments? Commissioner Desmani.
Yeah, I'd like to, if it's appropriate, speak to the comments we just received. Yeah. Okay, so the main thing I wanted to bring up is that thinking about what happened with Cherry Point. The moratorium basically gave the Planning Commission the space and time, which is very substantial given the amount of gap there was between where we started and where we needed to go, to correct many problems in the original packet we received from County Council. The reason that I think that I like the idea of a moratorium is because this conflict between industry and residential and environmental goals is happening because we don't think long-term enough and we don't plan ahead well enough. So that's what I personally believe. So taking a little time to think it through so that there's room for growth of heavy industry in our county while preserving the rights of existing industry is what I'd ideally like to see happen. I can understand how people in the community would be concerned because moratorium creates a kind of ambiguity. But we do have the prior example of starting with something that, as far as the Cherry Point amendments, it was extremely problematic and ending up with a code proposal that received unanimous support both at the Planning Commission and at the County Council. So I just want, or nearly unanimous at the Planning Commission. So I'm just saying that I still think that a moratorium makes sense despite the comments, but I was impacted most by Tyler's comment about, well, let's be careful about the scope of the moratorium. And I personally am very open to making sure that the moratorium doesn't block ongoing organic efficiency, environmental, and safety improvements at people's facilities.
Commissioner Masseri has the question.
Oh, no, just a comment. I just wanted to disclose that I had a conversation with Dan Tucker from the Whatcom Waterfront Coalition.
Okay, thank you. Any other commissioner comment? Okay, let's move on to approval of minutes from August 8th.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the minutes. Is there any discussion, correction, comments? Okay, seeing that there are no corrections, comments, discussion. Eileen, would you call the roll, please?
Yes. Jackson,
Abstain.
James,
Pass. I mean, I support the amendments being adopted.
Mosseri,
Yes.
Eisenberg. Yes. Deshmani,
Yes.
Barton,
Yes.
passes.
Okay, so we are on to our topic for tonight, and that is the work session, and we're discussing a moratorium or other solutions. Cliff, are you doing the presentation on this one?
I am.
So
Yeah.
Senior Planning Director Cliff Strong will be taking over.
All right, so based on the motion that the Planning Commission passed at your last meeting, we developed a draft resolution per your instructions. It's included in your packet. And I should point out, it doesn't call for a moratorium because the Planning Commission can't pass a moratorium, but it does suggest that the council could do that. Went through the minutes and, you know, and all your conversations to try to find the reasons for why you guys wanted to do this. So that's where all these whereases are. What they're for. They try to explain your position. Then the findings of facts, which are, you know, when you guys met and what you discussed and all that kind of stuff, and were you to pass this, what the vote might be. And then the two most important parts is that that you're not able to offer a recommendation at this time for the that affect the allowed uses in the HII, but suggest that the changes to zoning should be done through the 2025 comprehensive plan update, and include, you know, including working with all the interest groups in that area and property owners and businesses. So I hope I captured your guys' thoughts, but you know, we can sit here and if I got something wrong, we can amend it on the fly as we go, if that's what the commission still wants to do.
Commissioner Desmani.
I'd like to propose to the Planning Commission that we also consider exclusions, for example, as Tyler Schroeder suggested about battery energy storage, and I believe there was a few other exclusions to the moratorium that Tyler suggested.
So I met with Tyler and his boss last week, so I'm aware of what they are recommending. And in preparation of you guys passing this resolution and not making recommendations on the excluded uses, I've already started working on the staff report and amendments, updating them with what I talked to the board about.
You think if I make chair my follow-up?
Yeah.
Okay. Would it be appropriate to put that something in either in the whereas or be it resolved that reflects that, or you think it's you can handle that? Or
I can handle it, but I think it's up to the commission to say what should be in this resolution if you're going to pass it.
So would it be appropriate to make an amendment, Chair, at this point?
Go ahead and continue and tell us what you're interested in, Commissioner Desmond.
It would be to add a whereas clause, just to say that in the whereas portion that the Port of Bellingham propose certain exemptions to the moratorium, and
not to the moratorium, to the list of excluded uses that the council gave you guys.
Sorry, to the list of excluded uses. Staff is incorporating that into a proposed language for moratorium.
Commissioner Masseri.
Yeah, I just want to clarify a tool. I think that he was just referring to the original list of excluded items, wasn't referring to that, to the moratorium. I think to the moratorium, I'm not sure if it was Tyler or somebody else, was more that they wanted it as limited as possible to affect the existing businesses as little as possible. So it was almost a recommendation that there's two recommendations, one to the moratorium, one to the list originally, is how I understood it.
Okay. Well, then maybe I read what I was imagining into Tyler's testimony. So if I may clarify, I'm now open after the public comments that we received today to an idea where the moratorium would not cover all activity. It would actually have some exclusions to it. And those exclusions to moratorium would obviously be existing business, but also new business as it relates to specific categories. And I'm bringing that up for discussion since nobody has proposed specific language. I'm bringing that up for discussion, and I'd like to hear what the other commissioners think about that.
Go ahead, Commissioner Rosari.
Cliff, how much specificity is there allowed to be in a moratorium? Can it be to that point where the moratorium doesn't affect existing businesses and allows new businesses of certain types and excludes others? Almost the reverse of the list to some degree?
Well, if you're going to develop a list of businesses that a moratorium, not the moratorium, a moratorium would cover, I would think it'd end up being quite similar to what council gave you guys as an excluded list for the zone.
Okay, yeah, I get your logic there, but
Yeah.
But could the moratorium at least not affect existing businesses as
So,
far as permits?
so
As you have stated there, yeah.
yeah, so, we'd work with council to make sure that it only applies to new were they to consider it and realize that the council has talked about it several times and have chosen not to do that. So I don't think that they're going to do a moratorium. But were they to do that, then we'd craft it to, really only not apply to, ancillary permits, like, for fixing up buildings or adding new equipment or new electrical or that kind of stuff. They would probably have to target it to basically the list of exclusions that they provided you.
Well, I'd like to ask you a question. And that is, so we talk about a moratorium or a hold. Basically, we want to postpone our action on this for a little bit because we know that we're going to run right into the 25 comp plan update. And what we realized from our Cherry Point work that this can go on for several months. And so the question I have is, do you have any idea when the comp plan, or we could be ready to discuss this topic under our 25 comp plan update?
Well, it will be included in there, and
it will.
I mean, the council is very interested in at least examining the HII zone in this area, potentially rezoning some. I don't know, what's on their mind. As I mentioned last time, they are looking to try to find new industrial lands outside of this area, just because there seems to be a dearth of industrial lands these days. But, when I heard your guys' discussion and your motion, I thought the most important part was section 1. I thought that was your main concept. And section 2 is just maybe consider a moratorium, and it should be, a very targeted one.
And yeah, Cliff, I could talk to that point because I was the one that brought up on the public record, the HEAL Act that Washington State passed, where that we lead with environmental justice as to build a healthier environment. We make sure no community is overburdened by environmental pollution and that we strive to eliminate environmental and health disparities. I know that in this room, I might be the only one that lives in that UGA by the cement plant and that is concerned about the particular matter of air pollution, as well as knowing the cultural significant rights of Lummi Nation and having their lands stolen from them and then polluted on. And so the burden for those that live in that area of residential of 2,300 homes, having a heavy pollutant or heavy impact
would be dramatic to all of the students, the children, the two schools, and the families thereby. And that's why I suggested having a moratorium, since there was going to be comprehensive planning, and that during that update of the next 15 months, a lot of these discussions would be there anyways, and that didn't make any sense to either suggest a moratorium because the comprehensive plan was going to be kind of taking care of that. And again, for the record, I'd like to make sure that everyone in this room is aware of the HEAL Act, and if not, I would encourage everyone to read about it and to know that in the HII, the EPA puts that Urban Growth Act as a 10 out of 10 for the heaviest. So I just want to let you know that people in the Black and brown neighborhoods out there are going to be affected by it, and so are Lummi Nation. And so I am in favor of a moratorium if that's something we vote on, and that's something I made acknowledge last time, and at several county council meetings before. And I also suggest, just as Tyler and all of our friends in the business community are suggesting, we carefully work together for compromises and targeted solutions that still helps industries keep their jobs and go through a just transition so that they're able to have those middle living wages, or middle degree, non-college degree, middle wage, middle living jobs for people that work in those industries. Sorry, that's a mouthful.
Yep, and I get all that, but this is your guys' resolution, so I'm just looking for input. If you're moving towards passing this resolution, I want to get the wording right for you.
Go ahead. Yeah, I would say, Cliff, I think that you did a good job representing what we discussed, and I think especially having us discuss it and kind of talk through it again and clarify it, I think it represents well, at least what I think that we had discussed before.
Commissioner James.
Just to say I'm supporting of sending us back to the council and asking them to reconsider a moratorium with some targeted exceptions. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me for us to be patchworking this together immediately prior to launching into the comprehensive plan review. It would be much more systematic and a long-term solution. It seems like we're muddying the waters rather than clarifying things. And I think if the council isn't brave enough to put a moratorium in place with targeted exceptions, I think then it'll be back on our plate anyway. But I really don't think it makes a lot of sense to make these kind of here and there solutions that aren't part of a comprehensive review. I think the whole point of a comprehensive plan is to go back and review these things fundamentally with all the interrelations and all the complexities and resolve things in a final way rather than patchworking it together. So I personally would be in favor of adopting this resolution as written with the clarifications, Cliff, that you're working on. Thank you.
Commissioner Desmani.
Yeah, and I agree with what was just said, and with the idea of a moratorium. And I think guilty, Frank. The point of muddying the waters, actually, my attempts at amendment would actually potentially make the situation muddier, and I don't want to do that. So, I was exploring that, see if there was a best of both worlds pathway, but I don't see. I mean, I think obviously for protecting existing business, doing their usual and accustomed, work on their facilities again, like we did with Cherry Point, making sure we don't do anything to interfere with efficiency, environmental safety upgrades is obviously paramount to me. Yeah, I've spoken. I think I support this resolution. I think Cliff, you did a good job.
Thank you.
I have a question here for the commissioners. And I might have just missed it, but is there a deadline on this of where it runs out, or is it just open? Or should there be a deadline, say, that carries us up to the 25 comprehensive plan when we're going to work on it anyway? So this is not a document that sits there indefinitely.
Well, I think in essence, what this is saying is the planning commission doesn't believe that monkeying with the zone right now is the right thing to do, that it should be, that all this should be figured out through the comp plan process. And a moratorium might be helpful in gaining some time for that. That's essentially what it says. And I think if I take this forward to the council, they'll probably act on the code amendments themselves.
No one speaking, I'd like to just add a point to that, is I really would like this to have an end on it so that it's not something that leaves all our businesses in limbo wondering what's going to happen. I'd like it to end. This is my opinion, and I'm not making a motion because I'm the chair and I generally don't do that. But I'd like to see it end somewhere during the time when we're doing the comprehensive plan, that it comes to an end.
What comes to an end? Because
a moratorium if we were to pass it.
well, the planning commission cannot enact moratorium.
Correct.
That's for the council to do. And my guess is if they did want to consider one, they would craft the language for it.
Thank you.
So I don't think the planning commission needs to craft that for them.
Okay. And our assistant planning director, Robert, go ahead.
Kelvin, I just want to clarify. So with this document, this is just really an instrument of communication between the planning commission and the council. It's not really enacting anything. The planning commission doesn't have the authority to do that. This is really just your communication to them. And so I mean, if you want to put some kind of dates in there, that's up to the commission, but it really doesn't have an effect.
Commissioner Jackson.
Much of what we do doesn't have an effect on the council. We send over recommendations to them, and they adopt those recommendations. They monkey with them, or they don't do anything. I agree with Kelvin that a moratorium recommended from the commission is something that they're going to look twice on, and that there should be a deadline on it. That we recommend that it expire, that it have an expiration date, or we put an enumerated expiration date on it that we're recommending. But this is a recommendation. It's not, we're fully aware of what we're doing here. It's not, this isn't news to us. And I think that it's a good idea to put a recommendation in there that it terminate at some point. So, and they can throw it away if they want to. I don't care.
Commissioner James.
I care. It'll hurt my feelings if they throw it away.
I had a question for you. It's a pragmatic one, and it's one of opinion rather than fact, but I would like your opinion about it. And that is it seems like what we're trying to do is accommodate the concerns of the gentleman that came into the room to speak about the hardships that this could put on people. And if what we're trying to craft by these exceptions would give them the relief they need, would that potentially give the council more comfort in passing a moratorium if these carve-outs were there that would prevent the untoward impacts of having it, allowing us to then do the complete job at a later date? Now, is that a realistic way to think about it, or do you think that's not something that's the problem at the council level?
I guess, were you to get in the business of trying to craft a moratorium for council, I think
No, the exception is what I'm saying. I'm not saying crafting a moratorium for the council. That's their job, not ours. I'm really clear about the civics of it. What I'm saying is, are taking the time to carve out and protect those current institutions from being harmed by it, would that be helpful to them? If it isn't helpful to them, then we're wasting our time. If it
Yeah.
might be helpful to them, then I think it might have a role in moving the discussion forward. That's my thinking about it. I'm just asking you, Cliff, are there a bunch of other problems I don't know about that are the real issues why they don't want to do it, that have nothing to do with protecting those businesses in the interim? Or is it really, would this be helpful?
I don't think so, in that, like I said, I think if we take forward your guys' recommendation not to do this at this time, I think the council's going to look at the drafts we've already prepared, into which I've already amended for council the stuff that Tyler and I spoke about. I think that they'll end up just passing that, not passing a moratorium, but amending the code to exclude that list of businesses.
Well, I guess
That just feels like, sorry.
I'm going to ask just to finish, and I guess I'd ask Kelvin, procedurally, this could be relatively time consuming. It already has been. And if we don't pass this communication to the council about considering the moratorium, then we'd go back and finish crafting those things and vote on them ourselves now. Is that what would happen? Is that the?
I think that's your two options. Either doing what the council asked you already, or communicating to them that you don't think that's the right way to go. We're done with it.
Thanks for the clarity.
Commissioner Masseri.
I'm in favor of passing this resolution on them, to them. I think if we want to recommend that there's an end date, if they do consider the moratorium, I'm fine if that's in there or not. I think that if they consider the moratorium, they will have to consider that when implementing the moratorium. But if the other commissioners want that in there, I'm also very fine to have it in there.
And that would be easy to add to the end of the sentence. So the moratorium should be carefully crafted so not to affect the existing businesses in the area, and should end upon adoption of the 2025 comp plan update, something like that.
I'm also in favor of, voting on this so we can move forward. Again, I'll just mention the HEAL Act is not in there. As was previously stated in last meeting and now this one. The Port of Bellingham interest groups and any other interest parties according to the HEAL Act. I think it's important that we start leading with environmental justice, especially in areas that are in the UGAs that have city services and sewer, and that are kind of being stringed along, and that by using the HEAL Act, it would open up funding sources for Whatcom County and the port. It would open up funding sources from both state and federal governments to allow there to be planning processes to help even increase economic development there. So that's all I have to say about that. I won't say it again.
And I'll write whatever the commission wants, but you have to convince the rest of the commission, not me.
Commissioner Desmond.
You're muted, Joel.
Cliff, were you going? I mean, I guess I want to propose that someone make an amendment to section 2 first, and then Commissioner Eisenberg proceed with a second motion. She wants that to be considered, but we should make a motion to amend section 2 as previously stated, that the moratorium that we recommend that the moratorium expire at a reasonable time.
I'll just put some draft text in here that you guys can talk about.
Yeah, I think, Cliff, the language you suggested would expire upon adoption of the comprehensive plan is succinct and to the point.
That's good language. Yeah, I agree, Frank. Thanks.
So I think that captures what you guys have just been talking about, but
Commissioner Masseri,
I'll make a motion that we include that language in section 2.
I already made the motion. You can second it.
Oh, but I'm seconding it.
all right, to add that, go ahead, Commissioner Eisenberg.
Oh, I was gonna say, yeah, I don't need a third ed, but.
So the question is there any discussion? And seeing that there's no discussion, I'm wondering if we should do a voice vote, if that's fine. I don't think we need to do a roll call, so. Okay, all those in favor of adopting this amendment to our proposal? Say aye.
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 Okay, opposed? Okay, motion carries, so we'll put that in.
okay. Should I start at the top and just let you guys read down and see if there's something that you want to add or change?
Great idea. But
Okay, let's start with the whereases.
I think you can scroll down a little further.
Okay.
About another half page, but Commissioner Masseri.
Yeah, if nobody else has anything to add, I would make a motion to recommend the resolution and the finding of facts as amended.
Second.
I think you can get your motion.
To approve finding of facts.
you're done typing, would you read that back?
Commissioner Moseri moved to approve the findings of fact.
It's the resolution
Resolution.
and the finding of facts as amended.
Commissioner Desmond,
What vote do we need to be able to pass this resolution?
Simple majority.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Eisenberg, did you have your hand up?
No, I was counting how many people we had.
Any other discussion? Comments or discussion? Seeing none, Eileen, would you call the roll, please?
Yes. James. James.
I'm going to abstain. Thank you.
Moseri.
Yes.
Eisenberg.
Yes.
Dishmani.
Frank beat me to it. I think I'm gonna abstain too.
Jackson.
No.
Barton.
I'm going to abstain.
Oh, sorry, it doesn't pass.
Commissioner Desmond,
Yeah, I want to explain my abstention. It was the when Cliff explained to me just a few minutes ago that he predicts that the council will go ahead and make the amendments instead of doing a moratorium. Will actually make their own code changes. I guess I'm going down the fact that Cliff is an accurate predictor of the future.
I'm just taking swags, man.
Yeah, I know. And then I feel like, well, then I get back to what I said a couple meetings ago. Then we're kind of being insubordinate. And I don't want to do that. I want to serve the county council. And so that's kind of where I'm not speaking for anybody else. That's where my ambiguity about this vote all of a sudden creeps back in. So I want to explain myself.
so Cliff, obviously, we're going to get some direction from the council that are you thinking that we're going to be moving ahead and working on this then?
Well, it all depends on what the commission wants to do. If you want to get back to the amendments, we can do that. But if you don't want to do this because you don't think it's the right way to do it, then you need to communicate that to the council. But you obviously just didn't get the votes to do that. So you're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place, or you put yourself there, I guess.
And Cliff, are you able to break this into some sections? And we kind of talked about that a little bit, and maybe a section that we could tackle and then give it a rest and get some of the other things we need to get done and then move on and tackle another section. Something to break it up so that we're not running like we did when we did the Cherry Point, where we were on it for about 5 months.
I think with the council's list as amended through my work with the port, that they would be code amendments that would be supported by the businesses and the residents out there. So I don't think you're far off in getting the task done. I don't think it's going to be as big as or contentious as the Cherry Point stuff was.
and maybe we should have this discussion during the week, but I was thinking in terms of some of them are, some of them are trying to separate it so we work on pieces that don't overlap, and I think that will save time.
What do you mean, break what? The resolution up or the code amendments?
Not the resolution, the proposals that you brought to us here about 4 weeks ago, or maybe it was longer than that, 6 weeks ago.
Well, that was the first version. I think the one I brought to you 2 meetings or 1 meeting ago was kind of based on council's direction. Like I said, I've amended it a little bit based on my work with the port.
Thank you, sir.
I mean, I can bring that up for you if you want to see it right now.
Quick look would be good.
I didn't understand you. Say what?
Oh, yes, go ahead and bring it up.
Okay. So it's basically taking this part here, 152, is just a clarification thing. That's not that big of a deal. And if you recall, there was a section in prohibited uses that said in the Bellingham UGA, certain uses are prohibited. Then scattered throughout the rest of the permissible and conditional uses, there were other things that applied only in the Bellingham UGA. So I moved all those things to this new section called use allowances specific to the Bellingham UGA. Brought that one from up there that I struck out down here. And then this list is based on council's exclusion list. But deleting the paper out of here and deleting the battery energy storage systems. And a couple other amendments I've made in here based on what the port and I talked about. So it's, it's a pretty short and sweet code amendment.
Thanks. Do you have any other topics that you need to bring to us more immediately?
Any other topics that I need to do what with?
Well, sometimes you'll have something that, hey, we have to get this done because we have a deadline coming up.
No, the only urgency on this is that council wants to get it done before a new application for, say, an ABC came in.
Okay.
This is the #1 priority right now on your docket.
Okay. That's,
Can I ask you?
I appreciate that. Commissioner Desmani, go ahead.
Sorry. Okay. So I'm looking at B, if I may. Is that appropriate, Chair, to talk about this language? Should I go ahead?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. So on item B, well, I'm not sure about the word chemicals because boy, that last I checked, that's a big word. That means a lot. For example, chemicals can range from pretty low risk chemicals like oleochemicals to chloralkali, as that was at the GP site. So, it's just high risk. So,
Are you saying that it should be struck out? Because
so
it is.
Right now it's you're striking out the fact that chemicals are prohibited, which means chemicals based on this modification would no longer be prohibited.
Correct.
So
you'd rather that stay in.
Yeah,
Okay.
but I mean, chemicals, what I'm saying, Cliff, is chemicals is a huge word.
It is.
I mean, rubber is a chemical, plastics are chemicals. Then you say, so I'm just worried about the striking out the word. Clearly, I get the point of about a paper plant, but there's activities things you can do with paper and cardboard that are relatively low impact. So I see there could be some work done on this language that would, we haven't, so the port weighed in on this, but we haven't gone back to the kind of community yet, have we? And discussed this striking of the word chemicals and paper.
We have not. You have not held a public hearing on it yet.
Okay, so we need to do that before we approve this, is what I'm trying to get at.
Right, yeah, you can't approve this tonight. I mean, we have to advertise a public hearing if you want to consider these code amendments.
And I just want to say for the record that I'm concerned about that particular strikeout chemicals, but particularly the word chemicals, because that's big.
Commissioner James, and before you speak, Commissioner James, your hand there matches your curtains on your right side. And it's hard for me to see that hand, but it's that color. So I'm gonna ask, oh yes, I was gonna say, can you change where you're at, or can you change the color of the hand?
That's super.
That's perfect. Go ahead, Commissioner James.
Yeah, just to say that I agree with Atul that chemicals is unwieldy in that it's not specific enough to be meaningful in my judgment. There may be something in there we do want to include in place of chemicals that is more specific as to the things that would be prohibited. A paper, I just wanted to find what was the purpose in striking paper?
So the port said that they would like to retain it as a permissible use, as there are a couple of businesses that actually work with paper up there.
And work with paper in what way, do you know? Or is the port fella still here?
I don't know, is Tyler, you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Would you answer the question for Cliff?
Yeah, I can try to. I have one other item I'd like to speak if the chair would let me during it finish.
Right now, I won't, because we've been criticized because we've let it go a little more free flowing.
Sounds good.
But if the commissioner wants to ask you a question, they can do that.
That sounds great. Thank you. So the last discussion, there was an item on board mills, paper, and a few other topics. And there was concern that that was something similar to what Mount Baker Plywood was doing work on. And so in a conversation with Cliff, it was just to keep paper as a use that was allowed and not prohibited in the near term between this phase to accomplish a compromise list before the larger comp plan conversation.
Thank you.
But I don't think there'd be, I think chemicals is overly broad.
Commissioner James.
Just to finish up on that, yeah, I guess I'm fine with both those. Although, is there any interest in specifying chemicals more precisely so that might be meaningful?
There's a lot of chemicals out there to list. It'd be a long list.
Exactly. And yet I understand the intent of the comment. You know, I just our colleague had mentioned the HEAL Act, and I went back and looked at the HEAL map, and in fact that region does have a significantly higher level of heart disease than other communities. I'm not sure the reason for that. It would be only speculative, I'm sure. But I mean, there are things that that are worth considering.
Yeah, but also note that this is regarding the primary manufacturing and processing of these things. So it's not incidental use of chemicals in a business, because all businesses do that.
Yep.
It's just a big chemical manufacturing plant would be excluded.
Commissioner Desmani. You're muted there.
Sorry. So what this is saying is that the primary manufacturing of rubber would be excluded, of plastics would be excluded. But the primary manufacturer of, for example, if you were to take natural gas and make methanol, a methanol plant would then be allowed. And so I think we should say something about chemicals and paper as currently used.
But what does currently mean in a code 10 years from now? So I don't like putting terms in there like that because codes, things change. And really this gets to the heart of why I think our whole zone for HII and LII is just so bad, because it basically only lists the things that were known or thought of back, when this was created in the 80s.
Right.
There's more modern ways of doing code where you don't have to get super specific on everything. But that will have to come with the comp plan update and then some changes to the zoning.
If I may ask you, Cliff, then just to address, can we just pick on that one example, a methanol plant, taking natural gas and making it into methanol, that would be allowed as a use.
I don't know the nature of a methanol plant, so
You basically, the input to a methanol plant is water and natural gas.
I would say it would be, well, if we leave the term chemicals in here, and that seems like it would be a primary manufacturing of a chemical, so that it would be prohibited in this area.
Yeah, but I also don't want to prevent the existing industries from using the chemicals they currently use, if you know what I'm saying. So that's what I'm struggling with.
So as as part of their processes, this is not saying that a business can't use chemicals in their processes. It's just saying you can't put a big old chemical plant here.
So I'm hazarding to guess that there's not a primary manufacturing business that manufactures chemicals in that region now.
I don't think so.
Yeah. And there are none that manufacture paper either, if I understand correctly.
They utilize paper, manufacture paper, right?
Manufacture.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I
think the
point of order, we're kind of talking and not, raising our hands, and I just don't want it to, I want the discussion to go a little more in order.
Good point, Chair.
Thank you.
I think the reason paper was in there was probably because everybody was thinking of Tacoma at the time, because that was current back then. A tool.
Commissioner James. It's still muted.
Yeah. Why are we taking the paper out again? I don't understand that.
Because the port was concerned that it would affect some existing businesses that do manufacture some sort of paper product. They're not doing a primary manufacturing of paper. They're not making paper from scratch, but they are using paper to make various things.
Yeah, I'd be interested in having a discussion with them about that at some point, because paperboard means something, is defined. It's paper, it's not plywood. And I don't know where they got their concern about that, but it is, in my view, unfounded.
So here's what I would suggest. I think if the commission wants to go back to this, I think we ought to schedule a public hearing and then take actual public testimony and then work out these issues that way.
Well, that's exactly what we do once we come up with a draft, right?
Well, and I mean, the draft may even change based on public testimony that you receive at your hearing.
Of course, but I mean, what we're trying to do is to develop the draft that will go to a public hearing. There's no other way to do it, right?
Yeah. I mean, we can work on that. I mean, it's not absolutely essential, because you could do that at the hearing too. But if you want me to take out some of these words now, I can certainly do that.
Commissioner Desmani, go ahead.
I want to propose an amendment to B. And no hard feelings if nobody likes this idea, but primary utilization, striking manufacturing and processing of rubber, plastic, chemicals, paper, asbestos, and products derived thereof. So
What does that mean?
break B into two. One is utilization, and the other one is manufacturing. Actually, is what I mean for my amendment. So when it comes to making, manufacturing and producing a finished product of rubber, plastic, chemicals, paper, asbestos, should be prohibited. And then utilization of rubber, plastics, chemicals, paper, asbestos, not asbestos probably, products that are derived of, should be allowed. So the industries in the area should be able to utilize rubber, plastic, chemicals, paper, but they shouldn't be able to make them as finished products.
So here's what I'm going to do. I'll put a little note in here of what you guys are talking about so that I can work on the code, because I don't want to finalize code on the fly like this, but
I totally respect that. I just, yeah. So just as a suggestion, obviously open for a conversation. So.
Thank you, Cliff. I appreciate that. Commissioner James.
Thank you. Atul, the whole purpose of this is to address manufacturing, and the other thing you're talking about, we're not going to address at all. Now, I don't think it's necessary to add that language, because those uses are allowed. And you're just saying we're going to allow the uses. Well, we already allow the uses, and what we're talking about is what we're prohibiting, which is the primary manufacturer. And I myself would like to, I don't know, I don't believe it's appropriate for staff to take things out without at least some consulting with only the input of an outside agency. That doesn't seem appropriate. So I would also like to put paper back in.
I'm gonna just speak up here before. We're kind of, at the moment, we don't seem to have a plan on this, and I think we could go here for a while longer with the discussion like this, but I really want us to get something done. And is everybody okay with taking a break, letting Cliff go back? Maybe take the first third of this, and that's gonna be our topic for the next session. Something along that line, or maybe Cliff has a group that would be a good group to work on and attack, so that we just, maybe we're doing A, B, and C, and next time it's D through F. And Cliff, if you could work on that, that would be great. Is everybody okay with doing that? Commissioner Masseri?
Yeah, I mean, if everybody wants to do that, that's the commission's choice to do that as a whole. I think that, like I said before, we're going down a road of spending an awful lot of time. If we're breaking this into multiple meetings and going through all this, was kind of the whole reason we've gotten to where we were tonight. And now we're talking about going back and talking about stuff for the past 3 weeks, or 3 meetings that we didn't want to talk about. So I don't know. I just think we're really going in circles here.
Commissioner James, go ahead.
It seems like the council has asked us to clarify this as best we can, and at least from Cliff's advice, they would be uninterested in any other approach. I think that we should do the work we've been asked to do. And I think what you said, Kelvin, is a practical approach. We could work on it some tonight. We could also bring it back in chunks over the next few weeks. I'm in favor of that. If we really don't want to work on it anymore tonight, I guess we could move to something else.
Commissioner Desmani?
Yeah, I also agree with with the chair's proposal. And again, open to coming back and working on it, or working on it tonight. And I just want to personally apologize to staff and the rest of the planning commission for my role in increasing the ambiguity over the last few weeks on this whole few months over this whole subject. But I'd like to believe that's because it's a complex series of choices and not because I'm stupid. So, anyway, that's my comment.
So I'm gonna ask a question here. On point A. So we can just try this a little bit. Do any of the commissioners have comments or concerns about that? So let's skip B. Because we're gonna go around and around on chemicals and paper. And Cliff, if you could look at B and give us just a little more breakdown on, you've heard the questions. Not make the code longer, but with some explanation for the next meeting. Point C, does anyone have comments? Any commissioners have comments on C? Okay, then let's look at D. Are there any comments, questions, concerns on D? So I'm not saying that you would be in favor of voting one way or the other, but you know, I'm trying to see if we can find a way to work through this, and maybe we'll make our list as the ones that are controversial. Let's take a look at E. Is that one that we should hold over? We have a lot of things on there. Or would you like to go ahead and Commissioner Desmond?
Yeah, I mean, having run a business that made soap and linseed oil, it's really not chemical intensive or I mean, people do it at home. So I'm not sure.
Do you want to look at it again in the future?
Yeah, I mean,
okay.
I mean, having subject matter expertise on this subject, I'd love to contribute on that. So
okay, so Cliff, if you will add that to your list along with B. And then F, the packing houses, slaughterhouses, associated holding pens, except for seafood. Does anybody feel like we need to look deeper at that? Commissioner Desmond?
Yeah, I mean, would that include a butchering outfit? Like, you know, I've got goats and sheep and I send them to Linden Meats for butcher. And I mean, it can be done in a very small operation. Why would we want to prevent that from happening?
Okay. Cliff, would you put F on your list also?
Yep.
Okay. G is asphalt storage. And Commissioner Desmani, did you want to, you took your hand down, thank you. So what about asphalt storage? Okay, so let's move on to bulk commodity storage facilities and truck vessel and transshipment terminals and facilities. Okay. Let's move on to I, hazardous waste treatment and storage facilities as a primary use. Anybody want to delve into that more? Okay, let's go on to, I think there's two I's in there, isn't there? Or is it an I and a J? Sorry.
Yep.
1, 2, or 3 solid waste handling facilities. Not see anybody wanting to comment on that. Let's go to A, thermal power plants. Commissioner Desmani.
So that would eliminate, you know, 1 megawatt, you know, biomass burner or on the one hand, or a natural gas peaking plant or an energy storage system connected to a thermal energy storage system, a cogen facility, a district heating facility that is taking waste heat off of a generating plant. I mean, all stuff that I would think would be very valuable.
Okay, Cliff, go ahead and add that to the list, and Commissioner Eisenberg, go ahead.
Yeah, I'd just like to add to the thermal power plant. I also believe should be.
And then, type 2 cannabis production facilities. Go ahead.
I feel like that one's contested depending on what the new farm bill says, because right now, I think if we did keep it on the list, we're prohibiting
Okay.
a lot of opportunities to do some sort of manufacturing, especially for hemp, which has less than 0.3% THC.
Okay, and Cliff, we add that to your list for further discussion, and that actually, the battery energy storage system, I think we want to discuss that. And I didn't mean to remove it from the list, but to include it for a smaller list for our next meeting.
Sure.
And then the last one would be cannabis processing facilities.
You want that on the list, or?
Is it anybody feel like we really need to talk about it? And I want to clarify that this doesn't mean you can't bring one of those other ones up, that we passed all those, but I'm trying to get us so we're focusing on a much smaller list. So Commissioner Desmani, go ahead.
And I forgot in our code, how do we define cannabis processing facility?
I was just moving to the definitions in our code so I could answer some of these. Let me get there though.
Would that include a location where I would consume cannabis, but it's kind of processing it in a way?
No. Cannabis processing facility means a facility licensed by the state liquor and cannabis board to process cannabis into usable cannabis, cannabis concentrates, and cannabis infused products, packaging and labeling usable cannabis and cannabis infused products for sale in retail outlets, and sell usable cannabis and cannabis infused products at wholesale to cannabis retailers. A cannabis processing facility shall include any structure that is associated with the processing of cannabis. So the problem with cannabis, if you guys recall, we just did those rules 3 years ago or so, is the smell that tends to get neighbors upset.
All right. So
I would like that, Chair, I'd
Go
like
ahead.
that, if I may follow up with my question then, I'd like that to be on the list of further conversation, because it really does depend on if it's indoor or outdoor. When the planning commission discussed this in the past, that's what we came down to, indoor versus outdoor.
If you would like that on Cliff's list, go ahead and put that on there.
So yeah, that has to do with N, which is the production facilities. And that's the indoor outdoor stuff. And so type 2 is the one that uses artificial lighting, which means they're basically indoors.
But if a processing facility is indoor, there's no reason for there to be odor issues.
Oh, you haven't heard all the complaints we get.
I will respectfully disagree with you. On the way in, I went by the refinery and I'm going, man, the refinery stinks. No, there's a skunk. No, it's the indoor facility right there on the other side of the refinery.
Okay. But couldn't okay, I'm open to this on this subject, but couldn't there be maybe a more specific limitation on odor?
Well, we do have those now. We remember that the council adopted some performance standards, which includes mitigating all those things. But the one that your chair drove by is an existing one, so it didn't have to retrofit for those things.
Yeah, so okay. I mean, I would like to keep that on the list of things to discuss further.
Okay, we'll put that on. I'm not going to tell the commissioners what to do, but do you have more that you'd like to do, or is this enough? We've done enough for tonight and we're setting ourselves up for our next meeting? Or if there's new business? Okay, I'm not seeing any hands up, but, and I'm not trying to shut anybody off. Hey, we don't usually run our meeting quite this way. But if there's no other comments or new business, the meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, Commission.
Thank you.